Hello once again, and welcome to the Gaming News Canada show. And yes, it's me, your humble host, Steve McAllister. Last week during the SBC Summit Americas in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, player protection and responsible gambling were among the topics discussed at the gathering of gaming types. During the two-day conference, FanDuel introduced its latest piece of RG technology, simply branded Real-Time Check-In. That announcement landed some 5 months after the Flutter Entertainment brand delivered the My Spend tool to help FanDuel customers track and manage their spending and gambling activity habits. Partnerships with Front Office Sports and Cambridge Counseling Services, along with FanDuel's Ambassador program, also highlight the operator's investment in trying to protect sports bettors and iGaming aficionados. FanDuel's investment in responsible gaming programs earned them a couple of pieces of hardware at the SBC Awards America last week for Socially Responsible Initiative of the Year and Sportsbook Operator of the Year. So it seemed to make sense to have someone from FanDuel join us on this latest episode of the podcast. We say greetings to not one, but two members of the decision-making team at FanDuel. Welcome to the Gaming News Canada show, Senior Commercial Director Jill Watkins and the Senior Vice President of Public Policy and Sustainability for FanDuel, Corey Fox. First of all, Jill, just congratulations on an exciting week for the company. Obviously, the announcement earlier this week about your latest responsible gaming initiative, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I think Corey was maybe at the SBC Awards America to pick up two pieces of hardware on, I think, Wednesday night for sustainability and also a Sportsbook Operator of the Year. So it's been a good week for the company.
Absolutely. We were very excited to take home those awards. I think we've won the Sportsbook Operator Year of the Award of the Year a couple times, so we were proud of that one.
Yeah, and I think, Corey, it's funny. Like, we sometimes joke about covering this industry that there are an awful lot of awards and award shows, but I think at the same time, having our company having been part of those award ceremonies in the past, I don't think it's something that you take for granted. And we know that the competition in this industry is very, very, very competitive, not just in North America, but across the entire globe.
Absolutely. We continue to see all of the operators up their game year over year, and we're doing our best to keep pushing as well.
Hey, Jill, I want to ask you, and I mentioned in the introduction just how invested FanDuel has been on the responsible gambling front, and it's sort of it's become a pet topic of ours on the podcast. It seems these days everybody we have on the show we talk about, we at least devote a segment to responsible gaming. And I'm just thinking that given what's happened with Real-Time Check-In that was announced this week, the My Spend initiative that was announced back in December, I have the feeling that I know everybody's busy at FanDuel, but I have to believe you're one of the busiest people in terms of trying to get the technology right and get these programs off the ground, because these programs, it's great for Corey and the people sitting in a room and drawing these initiatives up on a whiteboard, but actually put these ideas into practice, it's not an easy task.
No, we have been busy. We have been busy, and I think to that point, it's a case where we see Real-Time Check-In is now live and public, but a lot of work goes in the background with a lot of teams over the course of 18 months to make these things like real in the hands of customers. So yeah, we have been busy. We love that people are noticing. We're really trying to lean in and make those significant investments in our presence as far as responsible gaming goes, because it is such a priority for our business. It's a priority for our customers. For us, kind of, being so big in the industry, we want to make sure that we're really setting the standard for what it means to be a responsible operator, and like how you can build out really strong responsible gaming programs that cultivate a culture of people wanting to use tools, knowing what their play is, and having the tools there and the resources there to support it. So we've been very busy with the likes of Real-Time Check-In, My Spend, our Know Your Play programs, and like our Cambridge program, which is just a few things that we've been busy on. But no, we're excited about it all.
Hey, Corey, that's a great segue. We'll get you both to walk us through the Real-Time Check-In initiative in a second. But as I mentioned, the company is heavily invested in RG initiatives. Jill just mentioned the RG Ambassadors program. We know about Know Your Play, the partnership with the Cambridge. is that an investment that's evolved over time, or is it something that's becoming more important because of what we're seeing across the industry right now, where there are some indicators that problem gambling has become a little bit more prevalent with the boom in digital gaming? I just wonder what's been the motivations for FanDuel to really go all in on responsible gambling.
Yeah, and I think it really goes to sustainability, Steve. I think our view has always been, since before we launched into Ontario, has been that in order for us to be around for a long time, we need each of our users to be able to play on the platform for a long time, and that means managing their play wisely. Um, Responsible play has been at the core of what we wanted to do in Ontario from the beginning. That's why we opened up in the market with responsible play commercials. So it really is at the core of the value proposition that FanDuel is bringing to a very competitive market in Ontario.
I'll maybe get you, Corey. I don't know if it's you or Jill wants to kind of walk us through real time check-in, and we'll just let our audience know we also have a video that we're going to include with a Substack post that's a really cool demonstration of the tool as well. But I'll maybe get you just to walk us through the steps of the initiative.
I'll kick it off, and then Jill can fix all my mistakes and give you the real detail after I go, as per usual. Last year we introduced FanDuel My Spend, and we found that providing personalized insights into a customer's activity helps them better manage their activity on our platform. Over half of our active users use My Spend, and users who viewed My Spend were more likely to set deposit limits to manage their play. So that taught us something about the kind of tools our users want to see. So what we're introducing today in real-time check-in really builds on that success. But we think this tool is groundbreaking. It brings important responsible gaming information to the customer at a critical moment at deposit in a way that we don't believe has been done before in North America, by intentionally introducing a check-in into the deposit flow right when users are making contextually large deposits. This empowers the customer to understand what they're doing really clearly and control their own play. The way it does that is it uses machine learning to predict a deposit amount for every customer on every particular day. And when a customer attempts to deposit significantly more than that prediction, we surface the key information to the customer and offer them the chance to lower the limit, or to lower the deposit amount, or to set a deposit limit going forward. Jill, how'd I do?
Honestly, 10 out of 10. We've really put some work into this, and it's paid off. So good job. So no, I'll give a little bit more of the detail if that works for everyone.
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
As Corey mentioned, at its core, it's a machine learning model that's generating predictions. So how that actually works day to day is the model would have run today, Friday AM, and it would have, spit out a deposit prediction for today for me, for Corey, for you, Steve, and they would all be different. They would all be different because the model is fundamentally looking at each individual customer's history to build that prediction and to understand then, what is likely today as a Friday versus a Sunday versus a Wednesday, and trying to, build that into it too. And to do that and to get there, we take customer data. So we take deposit data, we take withdrawal data, we take wagering data and bonus data, and we plug all that in because they're all really helpful, and they can, change how a customer is going to interact with deposits on a daily basis. The model makes that prediction, and then that prediction is effectively held in the back end of that customer's profile for that day until it refreshes again. And then if a customer comes onto the platform and they come on to deposit, we are then checking in real time against that prediction to understand if they are going beyond it, and if so, to what extent, and what we should be showing the customers at that point. So we have two different levels of check-in. Our first level is if someone goes, slightly above their prediction, and we want to, have a pause. We want someone to, take a beat and be like, are you still happy to continue on knowing that this is higher than what you would normally do and what we would normally expect? At that point, they can, go back and they can decrease their amount, or they can continue on. If a customer then goes past their predicted amount by a significant amount, they are then shown our second level of check-in. And at that point, again, we are flagging, here's where we would normally have expected you to be. Would you like to go back and reduce your deposit attempt before we proceed? or do you like to continue? And if you opt to continue, we let them know up front that we would then be asking them to set a deposit limit after we process their deposit before they can continue back to the homepage to, go about whatever they wanted to do. And that's effectively how a customer sees it. So, we have these different levels. I think, the key things that we really wanted to ensure was that we were meeting the customer where they are. So having it be in the deposit flow was very important to us. And also having it be at that attempt phase in real time. So we're able to, take that pause, provide customers upfront with information about their play and empower them to make a decision that's in their best interest.
And I guess too, Jill, making that as seamless as possible, because I know that's always a challenge for operators, is making these tools easy for the customers so it doesn't interfere or turn them off being a customer.
100%. And again, it's something me and Corey talk a lot about. Having tools are so important, but for us having them up front in a real seamless way is huge, where a customer doesn't have to go to great lengths to find them. It makes them even more effective, we believe.
Hey, Jill, just quickly, how possible or would this project have been much more difficult if we weren't where we are today with artificial intelligence?
Yeah, it would. We wouldn't be able to get to the scale. We still would have made, our best, endeavor to do it. But I do think that being able to do this at the scale we wanted, which was, being able to have this live for all of our customers, having the likes of machine learning really just enables that scale effect, and kind of gets us to the levels that we would want.
Corey, something we talked about in the newsletter going back, almost 4 years ago when we started covering the industry and when FanDuel got in the market in April 2022, and something we talked to Dale Hooper about a lot when we bump into Dale at conferences, is that FanDuel really was a leader out of the gate here in Ontario and responsible gambling with advertising and marketing. And as the two of you know, that's been a highly controversial topic, not only in Ontario, but in U.S. states as well, where online sports betting is legal. I think something that maybe gets lost sometimes is that there are pretty proactive mechanisms in place, like real-time check-in for FanDuel customers once they register. But I would think a big part of your job is having that two-pronged strategy as one for existing customers and then also for people who haven't joined the FanDuel ecosystem yet.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the advertising serves a key function to make sure that everyone knows that FanDuel is focused on responsible gaming, and puts our brand where we want it to be, which is the most trusted gaming operator in North America. But then we need to have the tools to back that up once folks get onto the site. I think we've been, dedicated to this since day one. We're owned by Flutter Entertainment, which has brands all over the world, and they're dedicated to responsible gaming in those other markets as well. And they gave us some good insight on where they think the US market is likely to head and the Canadian market as well. And they've been pushing us to make sure that we're at the forefront of responsible gaming in North America.
Maybe I'll get you both to weigh in on this, but in terms of Ontario and as I mentioned, FanDuel's been here since day one. We can't have a conversation about this industry these days without Alberta being mentioned and the possibility of a market coming to Alberta. Maybe start with you, Corey. Just how much time have you spent on the Ontario business? And you entered a market where Ontario and Canada have a pretty good reputation on the responsible gambling front. And I'll mention Shelley White at the end of the podcast here. But there's kind of a history of focus on responsible gambling in this country through the provincial lottery and gaming corporations, organizations like the Responsible Gambling Council. And I just wondered if there have been some lessons learned from those organizations, or if you had a pretty good idea entering Ontario that responsible gambling needed to be a priority.
I think a little bit of both, to be honest. I think we've been really focused on the Ontario market as a company. We use a separate version of our technology in Ontario that is focused on Ontario. We have an office on the ground and folks on the ground, some of which you've interviewed on the show before. So we're focused on tailoring what we provide to our Ontario customers for that market. And we know that responsible gaming is an important feature that we offer to our customers and an important differentiator in a crowded market of, I think, over 50 operators in Ontario. So the way we want to show ourselves is the brand you can trust. And we've worked closely with both AGCO as well as IGO Ontario to make sure that they understand what we're trying to do and sort of lead the market forward.
Yeah, and Jill, I think that on the product side, that I'm sure that's been both a challenge and an opportunity for you and your team. Is that under I think Dale's leadership, we know about the TSN partnership, and you see a lot of local markets on the sports betting side with FanDuel, and FanDuel has really tried to present itself as a Canadian operator. So, like I said, I'm sure sometimes Dale and his team are a pain in the rear end for your product team, but at the same time, it's kind of, I'm sure it's fun to develop new products and new ways to showcase FanDuel to customers.
Oh, absolutely. And like for us, it's just another opportunity to be able to, showcase that too. Like we're so lucky. Dale's team are fantastic. He has an excellent person leading product there called Ashley Garland, who, like myself, is background in Flutter and takes this stuff very seriously. And like when we come to them and we're like, this is, where we want to take this. Are you guys, up for giving us, some roadmap space or, talking about this? Their response was like, how soon can you get it? So I think they are so fundamentally set on this too, where like responsible gaming is a core priority for that team and for the business in Ontario. So having their support has just made things easier instead of, it being a challenge. It's been fun for us to be able to develop these things in tandem with them.
Hey, Corey, last question. And we're doing this interview on Friday afternoon, and news came out this morning that PointsBet in Australia has been fined about $320,000 US for emails getting through to customers that have self-excluded themselves. And I've had kind of background conversations with people across the industry about VIP programs and as a potential source of problem gambling. And I just wonder how does FanDuel tackle that? And I guess how relevant are the various responsible gambling initiatives? Are you seeing that programs like MySpan and the Ambassadors program, are you winning some battles on that front?
Look, we're super proud of our RG Ambassador program as well as the tooling that we offer, both of which we believe lead the industry. But we can do all the leading the industry we want, but we have to also execute on the basics. And so we have a VIP program that's managed with compliance first and foremost, and we're very careful about it. And that in terms of excluded players and the like, it's critical that we meet our obligations, not just in terms of the regulations, but our obligations to our customers are first and foremost. And when they self-exclude, we have certain obligations to never communicate with them again and never market to them again. And we understand that, and we do our best to always meet that obligation.
That's Corey Fox, the Senior Vice President of Public Policy and Sustainability for FanDuel. Jill Watkins, the Senior Commercial Director. Jill and Corey, thanks so much for joining the podcast. It's a bit of a quickie interview today, but we really wanted to cover the news this week around real-time check-in and also have a chance to say congratulations. But we'll get you back on the podcast again. And Corey, I think we'll have a chance to see each other in Toronto at the Canadian Gaming Summit next month. So I do look forward to that.
Sounds great. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Enjoy the long weekend.
Thank you. Before we leave the podcast, I mentioned Shelley White earlier, and I figured with Corey and Jill here, it was appropriate to mention that Shelley White was inducted in the Sports Betting Hall of Fame on last week. Shelley, the former Chief Executive Officer of the Responsible Gambling Council. So on behalf of everybody at Gaming News Canada and the Parlay, we want to congratulate Shelley for that. And that's it for this episode of the Gaming News Canada Show. As always, you can find us on Substack at gamingnewscanada.ca and on the various podcast platforms, along with our YouTube channel. Thanks again to Jill Watkins and Corey Fox for joining us today, and we will see everybody again very, very soon.